Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7x7. So it's anniversary week here at Star Wars 7x7, just a few short days before we officially celebrate 4 years of the podcast since July 7th, 2014. It's been rather the amazing roller coaster ride, coming up on 1,500 episodes in August. That is crazy as well. And, you know, the numbers won't add up, by the way, just so you know, because Star Wars 7x7 was released with 3 episodes in the bank, and the 4th one that actually went live on July 7th. So there was also an episode 0 for an Origins episode 2. So when we actually hit July 7th, it won't be 1,461 episodes, including the leap year in 2016. It'll be just a few more than that. But since it's anniversary week, I'm taking a walk down memory lane of sorts, and especially, you know, in light of what's been going on over the last 4 years in general and the last 6 months in particular, I'm kind of reevaluating things, and this goes right back to the very first episode, the very first, well, I guess episode 0 was the first episode, so episode 1 of the podcast, which was titled The Movie Formerly Known as Star Wars. And I'm going to read to you from this because it's kind of relevant to where I'm going with this. I talk about the fact that, you know, when Star Wars came out, it was an entirely new cultural moment, and nothing before or since has spawned the kind of cultural possessiveness and devotion that Star Wars has. And, you know, just we're so bombarded with media stuff these days that nothing like Star Wars, you know, will ever create this sense of devotion, this sense of, dare I say it, entitlement. In fact, I am daring to say it because we're going to get there. You know, Harry Potter, like, maybe, you know, Marvel Cinematic Universe. I mean, I know that it has a lot of dedicated fans, but yeah, you know, there's not, you know, Marvel conventions every year, every other year. You know, Harry Potter conventions, I've been looking for them, not so much. You know, Star Trek conventions, died on the vine, basically. But Star Wars, no. Star Wars is just as vital as ever in that regard. But here's what I said back in 2014. I said, you and I as fans have made Star Wars the enduring phenomenon that it is. This is the secret that George Lucas never understood. Star Wars belongs to us now. That's why people get all up in arms about the changes he makes. He's not messing with a film project anymore. He's messing with us in capitals, our memories and our souls. And later on, when you create something so resonant, it creates a new kind of public trust. And I said that you and I own the Star Wars experience. Now, there are a couple of things that I still agree with there. For example, I do believe that you and I own the Star Wars experience to a degree. We own our Star Wars experience. We don't own the Star Wars experience, but we certainly own our own Star Wars experience. That's very true. And I do agree that for a certain generation of fans, when changes are made, and this, you know, really refers to the special editions more than anything else, but when changes are made that it actually has a, you know, deep and lasting effect on something that, you know, was very cherished to us in childhood. It's not like George Lucas is going out and making changes to the prequel trilogy, and I imagine that there are a lot of people who grew up with the prequel trilogy who might have the same experience if George Lucas decided to go back and make changes to the prequel trilogy. And we'll talk about the special editions later in the week. They will get their due. Now, it's a little bit difficult looking back and seeing that I was so wrong about something from the get-go, but hey, better late than never, right? So this idea of Star Wars being a public trust that belongs to us, utterly and completely wrong. That's where the word entitlement comes back in. And, you know, at least speaking for myself, it's a pretty mild entitlement. It was a pretty harmless entitlement, all things considered, but it is an entitlement nonetheless. There is no public trust. It's still just a movie, and it is a very well-told movie, and George Lucas had to do the best job he could telling a story, and, you know, ultimately there's a profit motive behind it, right? He's not going to tell stories just for the sake of telling stories. No, he has to make money telling stories. Granted, he has to tell the best possible story he can in order to then, by extension, make the most money that he possibly can. That's absolutely true, and we can't discount it. But Star Wars is not ours. It is George Lucas's, and it is the people who made Star Wars, whether you're talking about Ralph McQuarrie or Dennis Muren or any of the amazing ILM, Skywalker Sound people, the actors, the crew, Irvin Kershner, Larry Kasdan, Leigh Brackett, Richard Marquand, like the list can go on and on and on, obviously. These are the people who actually own Star Wars because they own a piece of the creation of the thing that we cherish and hold so dear. And when you bring it to today, well, Kathleen Kennedy, handpicked by Lucas himself to carry on the vision of Lucasfilm. You've got Dave Filoni, handpicked by Lucas himself to carry on the vision of Star Wars stories. You've got Jon Favreau, who is tapped by Kathleen Kennedy and who is, for all intents and purposes, the godfather of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He's the guy who got it up and running with 2 very successful movies and made it possible for that whole house of cards to be built. And J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson and Gareth Edwards and Tony Gilroy and Lord and Miller and Ron Howard and J.J. Abrams again. All of these people are the people with whom Star Wars has been entrusted, and they have the same motive that George Lucas had, which is A, to tell the best story possible in the Star Wars universe, and B, to make a lot of money as a result, because if they tell a really good story, then they'll make a lot of money, and Star Wars will continue to stay vital, and people will still want to hear and see more Star Wars stories. So if there is no public trust, if Star Wars does not belong to us, as I initially asserted 4 years ago, then what is our place in this whole universe? Well, I'm going to talk about that on tomorrow's episode, so that's going to do it for today. Over on the audio version, I'll be doing Last Jedi Trivia. That's at sw7x7.com/iTunes or wherever you like to listen to podcasts, whether it's Spotify, Stitcher, Overcast, you name it, I'm there. So do check that out. For now, though, it just remains for me to say thank you so much for watching, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.